Greetings, Warlords. Rodge here. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the skirmish miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. Today, we're joined by James. James, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going great, Rodge. How are you?
Awesome. So, you have volunteered to speak to us today about the Hussites for Age of Chivalry. So, very glad to hear from you. I guess, are you a longtime Saga player?
Uh, yes, with a slight break. I played a bit in version one, and then as young people tend to do, I went off minis and started trying to be cool and drink and chase girls. But I came back to it when the pandemic hit. I think as many people did. So I guess it's 5 years back in the saddle.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so you're over, I think you said you're from the UK, but you're over in Belgium right now for presumably work stuff, or how's that going? How's the saga scene there treating you?
The saga scene in Belgium and in the surrounding countries is absolutely amazing. Really great people. Yeah, I'm over in the Netherlands as well, quite a bit, doing JP's events, or I'm in Germany for the Grand Melee. Like, there's just so much saga I could fill every weekend, which is unfortunately impossible. But I try as much as
Uh,
I can.
yeah, definitely. Good place to be. Many places aren't so rich in saga events and players. So yeah, get in as much as you can. So we're going to talk Hussites today. So as of this recording, these are all backed up, so I'm not sure exactly when this sucker will be coming out, but it's still kind of early days. The book's been about maybe 2 months out, not even. So I guess, did you already have some Hussite models, or you saw wagons and you're like, give me those wagons? What drew you to the faction?
I luckily being a patron of yours, I had a little bit of privileged early access, of course, to
Oh,
the
yeah.
factions. So I didn't have any Hussites. I didn't really know about the Hussites actually before the announcements on Age of Chivalry. But yeah, I love a wagon. I haven't had a chance to play any of the wagons for say the Eastern Princes, so I was like, hey,
Hmm.
I'll take the opportunity, and it was a good opportunity as well to learn about the history. So it's one of the things I love about Saga is you get a chance to delve into some background of places and times that maybe you haven't had a chance to learn at school or whatever else. So yeah, I thought, oh, I've never heard of these guys. Let's go and build a faction, do some digging. It's been really
All
really
right.
interesting.
Cool. Yeah, the Hussites are definitely kind of a, I don't know, outlier. It's its own unique faction in an age of copycats and clones and guys wearing the same armor and everything. I think they kind of stand apart as one of the few factions in the book. So let's take a look at their equipment options. So the warlord can be mounted, hearthguards can be mounted, warriors are always on foot, and you can take a unit with pavises. And you've got levies with crossbows and a special unit of levies, the calling these taborites. Is that how to use that?
Yeah, I'm saying Taverites. I think we've
Okay.
got it there.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll talk about their special rules in a second, but the thing missing from this little list here is the juicy wagon. So the wagon, I put the characteristics up here. Yeah, we don't really need to get into every its aggression, armor, and all that stuff. But essentially, it's a wagon, not dissimilar from the Eastern Prince's wagon, which we've known for years, and the new Flemish wagon. But I think I would say the difference with this one is it's basically has firearms on it. Is that the main difference in your mind?
Yeah, obviously it has firearms, and because of that, you're paying a whole point for it. It's not one of the half point ones, and it generates saga dice, which is unlike our previous experience with wagons. So it's more of a player, I think, in than a support piece, which I think you've had for previous or other types of wagon.
Okay. Yeah, and those other wagon, they just they're slow. They kind of follow behind. They can't declare charges. They're not really shooting, so they are kind of support pieces, like you say. I guess the difference too is they have that. I don't know the name of that rule, but it sucks people in. They're loaded with gold, and everybody wants to. They have to charge them. But this one does not have that rule, right? Your opponent never has to charge this if they don't want to.
There's a Saga ability that sort of gives it that twist, but
all right, I like.
But without that.
Okay, yeah, and that's kind of one of the key things here is a lot of the abilities on the board kind of seem to revolve around these wagons, or they require a wagon, or they get better with a wagon, or I guess we're gonna see that. Let's jump to the Taborites and then maybe talk about what kind of list you seem to be using lately. The Taborites are just levies with armor 3 and melee shooting. They can seem to be able to close ranks, no special equipment. They have determination, but they can only charge with that. So you got to get them across somehow, and then they'll charge on their own. Do you use these guys in your lists? Have you tried them?
Oh, I love the Taborites. I try and take them
nice.
in every list I can. It really helps that they activate like half guard. I'm sure we'll get onto the basic abilities, but that just makes them really usable, especially when your uncommons and your rares are probably going elsewhere on this board.
Okay.
But you have to use them in conjunction, I think, with some of the Saga abilities to really get the value out of them. Because, as you say, they've got quite low armor, so they don't have that sort of tar pit quality that some other large groups of fanatical people have in Saga.
Yeah, so you can close ranks, but they'll still chew through you pretty good, and especially if you're the one doing the attacking. All right, so we got the wagons, we got these Taborites. You can take your warriors got to be on foot. You can take foot or mounted hearth guards. I'm sure some of this equipment will depend on your opponent, but have you settled into kind of a list that you like that seems to work for you?
Yes. I mean, the mounted options I think don't have quite the synergy with the board. So I'm sure as we go through, we'll notice that there's quite a lot of caveats on foot units. So I don't tend to take the mounted half guard option. I have used a unit of half guard in the standard role of warlord, protector. But I don't always take them. I think you're having either one or two wagons, I think, is the great debate amongst Hussite players at the moment.
Seems to be it. Where do you land on that one?
I've tried both. I started with one wagon, and then the first match I played was against another Hussite player who took two wagons, and they beat me. So I was like, clearly
wagon. The wagon envy there, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, clearly the answer is two wagons, but I think actually I've gone back to one because if you go for two, it really does limit your sort of your reach and your board control. You're investing quite a lot in supporting those wagons. A couple of units of warriors, you can't go wrong. It's some Taborites, and then one mercenary unit. So I've kind of switched this about a bit. I started with handgunners. The hand, the
even more blasting, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get enough. But I think there's some really good synergies in there with both the Lombard Lancers for absorbing a bit of the shooting that's coming your way, and also I quite like the mounted crossbowmen as well to give a bit more of a buff in a mobile fashion in areas where the wagon can't reach. I think that's quite a useful mercenary unit.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at keep hearing about these Lombard Lancers. I'm gonna have to go back and look at their rules. They seem pretty handy for a variety of factions. So, all right. Well, let's get into the board then. So up top, we got the usual stuff. The wagon does activate as a levy if you're using it. Now, the interesting thing about this wagon, which we didn't talk about, it's not a mercenary like the other ones, right? So you can use Saga abilities with this wagon, and it can be activated. I don't know if I think there is an ability that'll activate the wagon, but it can be activated by advanced abilities, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think you really need to. So as we go through, there are just a number of things that really help the wagons survive mainly. But there's also one that helps it move a bit as well.
Okay, cool. So up first, we got Wagenburg. I don't know, is this where all the wagons are made? Wagenburg, named after its trade? I don't know. Let's orders reaction for 2 common dice. Choose a wagon till the end of the turn. All of your non-mercenary units without ranged weapons within very short of that wagon. So you just need at least 1 model. Don't need the whole unit, presumably. Increase their armor by 1. So that's presumably could be quite a few units. How big is your wagon that you're using? There's quite a range. You could go, super wagon, like almost like 4 by 8 inches. I don't know. You probably use centimeters, but they can be quite big, or they can be quite small. I don't know. How big is your wagon?
I haven't.
Not to be blunt.
Never tells.
Yes.
So I don't go for the maximalist. I think that seems to be what some people are doing, because I want to use have the ability to kind of swap between terrain in the event my opponent puts a lot down. But I do try and go for at the moment I've got a 160 by 50 centimeter. So sort of getting near the length, but keeping the width quite narrow, and that's so that because the wagons now can move and then do a free pivot, or pivot and do their move.
Yes.
It means you can kind of swing it around so that you can make the most of abilities like Wagenburg and then Sortie when we get to that one. So having the length just enables you to fudge that a little bit and get a bit more reach without absolutely turning it into this unwieldy monster, I think.
Sure. Yeah, I've used some pretty large bases before. My Carthaginian sheriffs on 100 millimeter rounds, and it's a unit of 2, and just moving that around is extremely inconvenient. So I feel your pain here, but let's circle back around to the ability then. So it's two Saga dice, but you're getting multiple units here. Is this you playing this every turn? Is this the cornerstone of the Hussite defense, or not really?
It is really useful. Obviously, I've been conditioned as a Saga player to look skeptically at 2 dice abilities.
Yep.
But it is really good for, especially for getting utility out of your Taborites as well. As we say, they've got lower armor, but you can kind of turn them into a large group of warriors.
Puts them back up
nearby. Yeah, so that's really useful. Or if your half guard are there, clearly they turn into a bit of a monster.
That's good.
So yeah, it does lend itself to the idea of Hussites castling up a bit, which I guess Wagenburg, that sort of wagon fortress.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So 2 dice. Is this going to be kind of throughout the game you're using this, or maybe just when the dice are flowing on those early turns, would you say?
Yeah, it tends to be a bit situational. The Hussites do work quite well as a kind of set to defend, let the enemy come to you, and then attack. After they've sort of washed up against the walls a little bit. So sort of in that early phase, Wagenburg is a useful one to have up.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I guess we'll take a look at some other abilities, kind of see how this one fits in. Next one down is Sortie. This is a uncommon or rare activate a foot unit. Okay, so you already mentioned, here's one instance where you want foot guys. Activate a foot unit with an S of the wagon for a charge. You measure their charge distance from any point on the wagon. If you use a rare, you gain 3 bonus defense dice. Okay. I remember talking about this one before with Monty. So you could, I don't know, paint me a picture here of some shenanigans you've done with this ability.
Well, because I've gone for the longer wagon base, it means you can put such you almost a medium stick extra length on your charge if you want to.
Yeah.
So it's a really great way to bring units up that maybe are slightly in the backfield or you've held in reserve. That was a good use of my half guard. I say a good use of my half guard. I think the most memorable time I tried it was against Florian during an event in Amersport against his Burgundians, where I threw my half guard into a situation where then I fluffed the dice and they got absolutely smashed.
Naturally, never send the hearth guard to do anything. Come on.
That's it. But it is amazing for bringing units that your opponent just doesn't think are in the fight right up to the front. And just the utility, if you can, as I say, if you can pivot the wagon around so that it's pointing in the right direction, you can really overcome some of the mobility issues. It's almost worth, in some cases, if you can sort your units up for a good defense, to have them launch into a charge just to move and then hope that they survive the turn so that they're at least in the right place nearer an objective or something. It's the signature ability, I think, of the board, and it definitely gets play very regularly. Maybe not right at the beginning, but certainly every turn in the mid to late game.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, because you can move the wagon first and kind of set up exactly so. If your wagon's kind of centrally deployed-ish, once the battle's going, it's almost like any one of your units could charge any one of their units, thanks to this ability, so you kind of have a crazy flexibility to deliver a charge. How do you, I think I've seen some people talking about this, but do you, as far like, do the troops like move through the wagon, or have you guys decided mechanically how it works, or do you like move your troops from the wagon?
So I think it's the thematic idea is that they're leaving the wagons and charging at the enemy, right? So we take it as it's from the wagon, it's not through the wagon, so there's no sort of line of sight issues. I think this was confirmed as well by Julie on the Discord.
Yeah, because you could think like moving through terrain or something. There's a forest on one side. If you measure from the wagon, it's clear, but if you measure. If you're moving the unit through the forest, there could potentially some issues. So I wasn't quite sure how that was played. So I think that sounds good. Yeah, it seems to be the easiest way to play it. So all right, not a bad little ability by any stretch. Moving on, another 2 dire here. Common and uncommon. Reroll all your attack dice, which don't score hits. These abilities are better the bigger your attack pool can get. Can we get a big attack pool on this board? Yeah, it depends on the board whether you can or not.
You can. So we'll get to kind of flails later, which gives you some additional attack dice. But I think part of the problem with this ability is the demand on uncommons in the board. So we'll see that there's a couple of must-play abilities that use uncommons. Plus, if you want to do anything with your wagon, uncommons are the most likely source of that, given that they activate like a levy. So I haven't used it that often because of some of these other commitments or the synergies of having to say build a big combat pool with flails. But occasionally the dice land in your favor and you can use it.
Cool. Yeah, I think solid ability. You'd see a version of this that's just a +1 to hit sometimes. I would take the rerolls. every time are pretty good there. So a little insurance against that Hearthguard flood. So must not have had this one up that one time you're talking.
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's get to it. Next one down. Burning Faith, orders or orders reaction for a simple common. Remove a fatigue from a friendly non-mercenary unit. Now this is how many Saga veterans would kill for an ability like this on their favorite board. Yeah, pretty simple, but pretty awesome, I would say.
Oh, this is one of those play every turn abilities, because it either allows you to kind of overcome some of the slowness of the Hussites. You can double activate and then try and mitigate any of the enemy using your fatigue off the back of that, or particularly because of how Resilience 2 works with the wagon, and the wagon being so important to your strategy. I think you're mainly playing this to eke out a bit more life on your wagon.
Sure.
Throughout the game.
Yeah, that's probably target number one there. Got some great flexibility for either player's turn. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, just a common. I'll take it. All right. Their wagon ability here, I'm assuming from the title, circled wagons. Activation reaction for a common or uncommon. Trigger this ability when an enemy unit activates the shooter charge before it's resolved. If possible, they must... here we go. They got to target the wagon with their charge or shooting attack. So it's here if you want it. That's probably better than just having it on by default. Then being able to toggle it on and off is pretty good here. Are you like loading this? Because you could see maybe just loading this up early, and then at some key point you send them into the wagon. But I don't know. You need the wagon for everything else. So how often are you using this one?
Very rarely. It is very situational. It can be used to force an opponent into, having a weaker shooting attack due to line of sight shenanigans, or charging out of place, which can be useful, especially with if you're playing against the Burgundians and they've got their crossfire ability. If they have a unit they want to pick off, you can kind of force them to change their mind. But I think usually, actually, you're probably hoping they're not going for your wagon.
Yeah.
So it can be a bit counterintuitive.
Yeah. So again, pretty situational, I imagine. So I think with Resilience 2, the wagon can almost certainly take a hit if it's fresh of any shooting or any melee, I would reckon. But it's that second one that will finish it off. So you got to be very careful that the opponent can't do a follow-up attack if you choose to use this, I would say. You think that's good advice?
Oh yes, definitely. The wagon doesn't like being the center of attention. So I think you can only really use it if you want to do a bit of disruption, but they haven't got a charge or something already lined up by a different unit against your wagon.
Yeah, kind of like their last shot or their last charge of the turn would probably be the safest time to pop this. So, all right. Let us move on to Convoy. Loving the imagery here with the names. It's a common or rare. Activate a wagon and a foot unit within short of each other to move. You use a rare. Resolve this ability a second time. Oh, yeah, baby. This is why you take 2 wagons right here, James.
It does lend itself to the 2 wagon build, although you can double activate and then use Burning Faith, of course, as well.
Cool.
So if you want to get that wagon right up front as early as possible, that's a really useful way of doing it. It is a great way of activating your wagon as well to move for a common.
Yeah.
So you can get a bit more, a bit more bang for your Saga dice buck out of it. But yeah, it is a really good ability, again, because the Hussites tend to be a bit slow, can be a little bit of a compact castle-y faction. This sort of lends itself to a little bit more mobility.
Sure. Yeah. Great one here. Two activations for a single common. Yeah, we'll be using that every turn. All right. On to flails. Okay, you mentioned this one earlier, and this is one of those abilities where they named an ability after a weapon, and I like it. It's good imagery. Gain 2 attack dice in melee, or 4 if your guys are not equipped with ranged weapons. So we could pump those taborites up pretty good, right? 6 to 10 attacks for the full boat.
This is it. This is making those Tavorites into sort of hyped up warriors. So this is a really good ability. Again, it's one that you've got up quite a lot, and it's also really useful for making your wagon a little bit spikier. Obviously, it's not getting the full effect because it's got ranged weapons, but it can be a bit of a surprise for someone who thinks they've got easy pickings from the wagon.
Sure.
It's a useful ability to have up to help upgun your Hussites a bit.
4 to 6, not too shabby. And again, just a comment. It'll be there when you need it. 4 attack dice for a single Saga die is a pretty good deal in the world of Saga, so good to have. All right. We got a nice long one. Fervor of the Downtrodden, uncommon activation. Activate a unit of warriors or levies on foot for a charge. Gains 3 bonus attack dice during the ensuing melee. So, all right, I'm liking. We just talked about levies. This is even better, man. You can get these guys higher than a unit of warriors, the big Taborite unit. Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with this one, right?
Well, this is it. This is why I always bring the Tavorites. Everyone looks at them, they think they're so weak. Then you put a bit of Wagenberg action on them, bring their armor up. You add flails for the downtrodden. Suddenly, they're a lot tougher than they expected. The synergy with I think what you want to bring with the Hussites, the sort of the foot units are well supported on this board. You're probably bringing more warriors than anything else, or the Taborite levy. So it does work quite well if you were going to charge them anyway. Why not? Why not use Fervor of the Downtrodden and get the additional attack dice?
Yeah, it's cool. Gotta love those little warrior packs. You could have a little 3-man unit. I'll pop that with this. Pop them up to 6. Get them up to 10 with the flails. If you're just going nuts with religious zeal, get some rerolls. You could do some serious damage with that little unit. All right. Yeah, nothing wrong with this one for sure. Get activation and some attack dice out of it. I love it. All right. This one up here, I believe this font here is sometimes misleading. Is this Hoofnice? What do you...
Hoofnitze, I think.
Okay.
I'm going to have, say, Florian's going to be writing an angry letter in, but I did promise that I would Google some of the pronunciations on this. So I think it's Hoofnitze.
Okay, sounds good. Activation reaction trigger when an enemy unit wants to shoot or charge. Before they get to do anything, you get to activate that wagon to shoot. So the wagon, I think, with that other circled way, that's a reaction. The wagon's messing things up. Here's another opportunity for the wagon to mess things up for the opponent. You get to shoot the wagon at the activated unit. And if they take at least 1 uncanceled hit, they got to discard 2 attack dice from the shooting or melee pool. So hopefully you can do it. Can you remind us so I think it has 4 shots. What's the handgun shooting sequence? I know it's different than Age of Magic.
For the wagon, if it hasn't moved, which considering this is a reaction, right? It wouldn't have moved in that phase. It can shoot up to long, and it. Basically, you roll your attack dice as normal, but the first casualty is a fatigue rather than a removed figure, and then subsequent casualties are as normal. So it means that if you are successful, obviously you've got at least an additional fatigue as well as the reduction in attack dice that's coming your way. So you can use that as well in the melee that follows, or in the shooting that follows. So that's really useful as well. I think it's quite an interesting one across the abilities that involve the wagon, and this is part of the conversation that's going on the Discord. The wagon up front versus the wagon in a supporting thing, and between this and sortie, you're wanting to have the wagon up front so you can kind of maximize both the length of charge, but also its ability to kind of provide overwatch for the rest of your forces. And it's another good way of kind of evening the odds if an opponent is, say, charging into your Taborites, they're going to come in maybe with lower numbers, but at least a fatigue and fewer attack dice if you're successful. Of course, you have to roll and you have to be successful, and so you could pay the dice and not actually get any benefit if you fluff your rolls, as I am wont to do on occasion.
Well, I think too, I mentioned I was weird. Or I was distracted by the name there, but it's actually a rare Saga dice to do this. So you can't even, you might have this, you might not. And there's only one more ability to go. It's not a rare. So I guess for the rares on this board, Sortie gets you some bonus defense dice. Convoy, if you don't have a second wagon, you're never going to use a rare for that one unless you're trying to move it twice. Do you prefer Sortie to this one, or are you putting the rare here?
I tend to put the rare here. I just think having that it makes people think twice about charging you within that sort of L bubble of your wagon. And so if you're popping the wagon right in the middle of your army, or the sort of the key point where the objectives are, or something, it provides that moment of hesitation, I think, that the Hussites really, really need, because not being very mobile, you need to kind of force your enemy to move in ways that they don't want to move.
And I will say, so I've heard about this from Monty here, but the kind of the handgun aspect, the first hit puts a fatigue on the enemy, so believe you can use that fatigue to shorten the charge and even cancel it. Have you done that?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously it says before the activation is resolved. You can either shorten it, or you can, as I say, the unit can come in and you can use the fatigue in the ensuing melee. So it is really useful.
Cool. Yeah. Between those two, obviously there's going to be turns getting more than one rares. Nothing wrong putting it here. All right, cool. All right, last one here. Protection. Melee for an uncommon die. Gain 2 defense dice. Here with an S of that wagon. Gain 2 more defense dice. Kind of like flails. 4. You're getting a 4 for 1 here. Uncommon versus a common. And a wagon is always within S of itself. Is it? Is it not?
Yeah, exactly. Again, this is making your wagon a bit spikier. It's probably one of the abilities that you're using just to keep that wagon around. So between that and Burning Faith, you're seeing the wagon is absorbing quite a few dice, plus all the sort of levy activations for it. So it is a really good ability. It's one that, again, it's one reason why I try not to put uncommons in other places sometimes if I'm a bit short on them, because it's a really good ability to have up. As I say, if you're playing the Hussites as a force that's kind of taking a hit and then finding the opportunity to strike back afterwards, I mean, this is a great way of putting those odds in your favor.
Definitely. All right. So got to the end here. So I'm looking back. So 5 of the abilities require the wagon. If I'm looking at this correctly. So the wagon goes down, you're definitely losing quite a bit of your playbook. Do people try to blitzkrieg the wagon and just try to take it out at all costs to cripple you, or can the Hussites recover from that, or you got to make it so costly? I don't know. I guess there's kind of 2 or 3 different thoughts in there. I'll let you speak to that. Are there games where you've lost the wagon early?
Yes, yes, there are. Yeah, I mean, people see it, and I think now the conversation about how fragile the wagon is pretty well developed in the community. So they
Sure,
know that
yeah.
that's the prime target. So you do spend a lot of time and energy and dice trying to keep it alive. This is where a little bit of redundancy of having that extra wagon in there can be useful, but given, as I say, they do become a bit of a dice sink. It also does tie you down a bit. So I think having one wagon there, is the best way to do it, and then you've just got to kind of use a bit of clever positioning and these some of these abilities just to keep it around as long as possible. And also the problem is if people do destroy it because you've got it on such a big base,
Oh
it does
no,
give you quite a big fatigue bomb.
Yeah, the troops on the field know. We needed that wagon for our abilities. It's down. No. Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like you kind of need those first couple turns, using terrain to block angles, making sure there's kind of no gaps in the line, and just kind of limiting the enemy's opportunities to go after it. Is kind of key. Sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. I think actually, I think people have been talking about the terrain game in Chivalry, and I think Hussites are one of the best terrain players in Chivalry, I would argue, especially because many of the synergies are with foot units. You're not sort of having your cavalry hamstrung by the terrain. So having a good terrain placement to kind of slow down some of those cavalry armies will help even the field a little bit for your slow moving Hussites.
Okay. Yeah. I think I like the sound of that. You don't have abilities that are keyed on the terrain, or you're still slowed down by it. It's just that your infantry, they're seems like almost every faction is going to have some cavalry or some crossbows or shooting, so you're kind of trying to hurt the enemy more than you're hurting yourself by putting out that terrain. Do you have fun playing the Hussites?
Oh, I really love them. They are incredibly swingy in a fun way. The Taborites will either die very quickly, or they will be taking out the well trained flower of European chivalry like anything. So I really do love them, and as you say, they're one of those unique looking factions. They're just so thematic. I've got a great love for these guys, and with all their faults and the way that the wagon can go down so easily, I still love playing.
Yeah. What do you use for your figures?
So I've gone for mainly first core. They are the go-to for dedicated Hussite figures at this point in time. Although I do have a smattering of sort of gripping beast and foundry figures, particularly for the Taborites, because they do some really sort of characterful, like armed civilians.
Sure.
It's a really good modeling opportunity.
Cool. Does First Core has a wagon too that they sell?
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah, definitely. So you get the really big wagons or the sort of smaller, manageable sized ones. Despite going for the larger base, for some reason I ended up with the smaller wagon. So I'm trying to do a bit of a diorama with some crossbowmen and other bits, just to make it look a bit more thematic and pad it out a bit.
Yeah, definitely some modeling opportunities there with the wagons for sure. Yeah, the board looks pretty fun. So it's got the 5 wagon abilities, and then the 5 other ones. Like the 5 other ones are just kind of tried and true, solid Saga abilities that most any player would be happy to have those on their board. So that's cool. So definitely one wagon won't be gone. How many wagons do you own? Did you? Because you would have built it before you necessarily knew what the board looked like. Potentially, it sounds like.
So as soon as I heard that you could have up to half of your points as wagons, I then
Right.
went and bought 3 wagons.
Yeah. Those are going to be the shit. I want the, I want some of those. Those are going to be good.
I haven't built the 3rd wagon yet, but I promise I will try out the 3 wagon build. But I have a feeling it won't play as well as even the 2 wagons.
Cannot, imagine that would hold up to too well. Just looking at this. So maybe for those larger games, it would be kind of cool. Playing like an 8 or 12 point game or something. Seeing those 3 wagons lined up with your force. Surrounded them, saying, "Come on, bring it on!" That's got a cool imagery. All right. Well, James, thank you for volunteering, and thank you for being a patron as well. I want to thank Sean Pittrick, Mitchell, Scott, Frank, Britt, DJ, Robin, Damien, and the rest of the patrons as well. Wouldn't be doing a video every week in 2025, so appreciate it, guys. And if anyone has played with or against the Hussites, definitely let us know how it went. If you're in the 2 wagon camp out there, I want to tell us how it is. Tell us how we're fools. Let us know. Otherwise, I'll be curious to see how people games have been getting on. And still kind of early days here. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
No, thanks, Rodge, and thank you for all you do for the community as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. That is going to be it for this one. We'll check you folks later. Bye-bye. Saga! If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.